Let's be careful how we pray. In our gospel reading this weekend, we see Jesus give us a parable of two men who go to pray in the temple. One is a Pharisee and the other is a tax collector. Now, of course, in that time, Pharisees were looked upon as having a lot of honor and being holy and righteous people, where the tax collectors were basically stealing from their own people and enabling the enemy to continue the oppression of their country. So the dichotomy between the two could not be greater. We see the Pharisee come in, and in the Greek it says that he takes the high place, and he prays in a way that everybody can see him, as the Greek tells us. And in his prayer, he basically tells God how great he is, all the things he does, and how wonderful it is. He's not like this tax collector, and then assumes every worst possible sin upon him. Tax collector comes and prays, and we hear he takes a very humble place, keeps himself at a distance, doesn't even raise his eyes to God, and says, "Be merciful to me, a sinner." Now, the parable of Jesus is asking which person has prayed the best, which person actually prayed. In reality, both did. But the prayers could not be more different. And I'd like to posit that neither are really the gold standard. So first, the Pharisee. Yes, he's doing a good prayer, sure, but he's really just telling God how great he is. But on the same side, the good news about the Pharisee is that at least his life is not scandalous in public. And see, that's where Jesus' parable really takes off here. Because in the eyes of the world, the tax collector is the bad dude and the Pharisee is the good guy. So the Pharisee has that good going for him that at least in public, seems like a good guy, and quite frankly, prayerful person, works for the church, is doing some good things here. With a tax collector professionally, his life is a bit of a mess in the eyes of the world. And Jesus uses him as an example to show that people who are really not living the faith or living like they should. Now, what's ironic in the parable is the tax collector's sinner is actually the better prayer, asking God for his mercy, acknowledging that he is a sinner, as we all should. But here's the thing. The tax collector also has a lot of work to do in his life and in the way he's living his life. So thus, this example for us in this parable isn't showing us the gold standard of prayer, but shows us the positions that we ourselves can be on. Either we are in the Pharisee point where our life is looking good, but maybe we're kind of judgmental by heart and don't have it all together, or the tax collector part where our life is not together and we need to get there while our prayer might be more authentic and more genuine. I can tell you as a pastor, it's very interesting to see people who are truly holy. Because oftentimes people who are truly holy are not recognized in the parish. People recognize people that make a lot of noise, who look the part. But the people who are truly holy sometimes are the people that are ignored, the people who are walked past, the people who are actually looked down upon, just like we see the Pharisee looking down upon the tax collector. It could also be said that people who are truly holy have both going on as well. Look the part, pray the part, people notice the part. But one thing that is true in the history of the church, more often than not, saints were not accepted in their own time. And quite frankly, it was the church that gave them the worst amount of suffering. In our own lives, what is the worst amount of suffering that comes for us? What is the source? See, the goal of our life should be that suffering doesn't come because of our own making, our own mistakes, our own shortcomings, and our own sinfulness. That suffering comes because of virtue, because of our generosity, and us truly trying to live the faith. I know a lot of people who suffer egregiously because they are in pain, because people they love are not living their faith or are living their lives in sin, and they're very worried about them. See, this is a form of suffering that makes us holy, but also a form of suffering that is redemptive. It is a true prayer that needs to be offered to God. If you ever get a chance, do a survey of the Psalms, the 150 Psalms in the Bible, and look at the Psalms, because the Psalms are every human prayer to God. And it is in the Psalms that we find every thought that we could possibly have. But it's interesting to make a survey of the Psalms because so often our prayer is very much incomplete. Just like the prayer is incomplete of the Pharisee and, quite frankly, the tax collector. But when we pray with the Psalms, this is when we can have that complete prayer and a greater formation to pray in a whole, holy way. This is one of the great gifts as a priest that we pray the breviary 5 times a day. Praying the Psalms throughout the day is a wonderful way to learn how to pray. One of the best compliments I've ever been given in my life is that a few people who have had the unfortunate position to share a room with me on a trip say that I talk in my sleep sometimes. But what I'm saying is the Psalms or the prayers for Mass. Best compliment ever. I have no control over it, but I am so thankful that when people have overheard me sleep talking rare occasions, that's when I'm sleep talking. I could not be happier. And I hope that the Psalms and the Mass are taking hold of my own heart, transforming me, that I may become what I receive, that I may become how I pray. This should be our prayer, and quite frankly, the goal for all of us, that we become how we pray. And this is why I want to encourage all of you to look up the Liturgy of the Hours. It's online, very easy to pray. There's apps for it. But maybe start praying one of those. Start praying with the Psalms. And I think you will be amazed at how much it enriches your prayer and helps you from not that black and white way of praying like we see in the parable, but to have that fuller way of praying and truly uniting our hearts with the prayer of the church. May God bless you. Magnificat anima mea Dominum. My soul magnifies the Lord.